What's up, guys? This episode of the Kind of Funny Gamescast is brought to you by Omaha Steaks and Tipsy L's. Tipsy L's, as you can see, wearing the beautiful sweater right now. Everyone should have an ugly Christmas sweater this time of year. Tipsy L's sweaters are all about fun, but are serious on quality and construction. Shop now so you have the best selection to choose from and have it in time for your ugly Christmas sweater party. They also have other holiday and collegiate attire and adult onesies, so get on that. You can get 20% off anything you order on the site by going to tipsyelves.com and enter code GAMECAST to checkout. That's tipsyelves.com with code Gamecast. No S, not Gamescast, Gamecast. Then Omaha Steaks. So here's the deal. Last month, Omaha Steaks sent us a family gift pack with 2 filet mignons, 2 top sirloins, 2 boneless pork chops, 4 boneless chicken breast, 4 kielbasa sausages, 4 burgers, 12-ounce package, all beef meatballs, 4 potatoes au gratin. How do you say that, Greg?
Au gratin. Who cooks
All gratin, caramelized apple tartlets, 1 Omaha Steak seasoning packet, plus 4 additional kielbasa sausages, and we had a damn feast courtesy of Greg Miller. Yeah. Thanks, Greg Miller. It was awesome. You can get yours by going to omahasteaks.com, enter code GAMES in the search bar, add the family gift pack to your cart to get a 77% savings. It's the gift guaranteed to be a hit. So yeah, omahasteaks.com, enter code GAMES. Final topic, as always, brought to you by you over at the Kind of Funny forums. You can go to kindoffunny.com/for Gamescast topic.
Damn, wow. I was like, somebody's like hitting their computer thinking it's stuck.
To leave your request. Just like Will the Thrill 80 said, I'm sorry, guys. Life is hard.
It's Yoshi Poops.
I just want to go to Nintendo Land. Resident Evil 7, what's up with it?
Well, people played it. I saw that someone, I want to say Mike Mahardy or something who's from GameSpot, tweeted out that he had played 4 hours of it. I'm hearing that it's very similar to it feels like remake and
yeah, it's supposed to be first person Resident Evil, right?
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah, and I'm super stoked about it. I know Greg had some conjecture that he thinks it's going to get delayed.
I still see a delay coming.
I don't. I think it's going to come out.
I think trouble's afoot.
But I actually thought it was half and half until the preview coverage is coming out. And it seems like they're going to hit the January date. I'm super fucking stoked about it. I can't wait to play it in VR. I think that hopefully if it's good, it'll be the realization of what VR can possibly do. And so I'm bullish on it, and I really think Capcom seems to have learned some lessons. Like they're getting better, and they're getting a little more deliberate. I know some people were disappointed with Street Fighter V, but they seem to be a little bit more of a reflective company right now, and I think they understand no one likes Resident Evil 6. So I think that they're just, again, it's like Episode 7 in Star Wars. I think it's going to be an overcompensation, but it's going to be familiar, and people are going to like it. Mm-hmm. So
I wish it the best. I think I don't think it's going to work out well in VR. I don't think people will be able to, when I say I don't think they'll be able to play the whole game in VR, I mean you will be, but I think people are going to be popping this thing off left and right because they're getting car sick.
Yeah, no, I mean I'm very excited for it. I do think it could get delayed. The previews coming out today make me think a little differently.
That's a huge hole in my story. Because part of it was just the fact that I don't think we're hearing enough about a game that's supposed to be out in January.
Exactly. But still, I also don't think it's necessarily enough that it's not going to get at least a little bit of a delay. Like if I can see this coming out in March, for example. I'm going to play it at PSX before our panel. So I'm going to be able to talk about it there and see if I was wrong. Yeah, but in addition to the GameSpot article that I read, there was also an IGN one, and they seem to be very congruent with each other in the sense of it seems similar to the Final Fantasy 15 preview that happened about a month ago, where it's like, oh shit, this could actually be great. Mm-hmm. People seem to be really high on it, which excites me. I really wonder how long the game is and how much of an experience it is, because something like this seems to be a mix of Resident Evil 1 and PT, and I don't necessarily know how long I need a PT experience to be. You know, I feel like this could be an extremely, extremely solid 6 to 7 hour game, but I feel like it can get a little bit too long in the tooth. Long in the tooth if it's in the more like 10 to 15 range. Yeah. But like I would much rather a shorter, more concise, more like scare-filled experience than something with a lot of backtracking and like weird bullshit. That is what Resident Evil is, but I think it's not what Resident Evil needs to be.
Yeah, I think what you'll get is an 8 to 10 hour game with a lot of accoutrements that allow you to play the game again differently. So like difficulty level scaling, time runs, all that kind of stuff, and hopefully a degree of nonlinearity that kind of that Resident Evil doesn't necessarily ever have. I think Resident Evil 4 kind of had it in a way, but Not pure non-linearity, but things that don't need to happen or that you don't need to see. I like games where there's all this extraneous shit that adds to the story and the narrative and to the feeling of the game, maybe a day-night cycle and something like that, but that you can run through it pretty quickly too. So what I'm hoping is that it's a game that is, I don't want Resident Evil to be longer than 10 hours in any way, because I think it ruins the experience. It's unbelievable at that point. And I think one of the cool things about the old Resident Evil games was they were pretty believable in their own way. Silent Hill too. So So I think that's what you'll get. And that's why I'm confident that it's going to come out. And I actually think it's incumbent on Capcom to get this game out in January, because I think that if they wait any longer, it's not going to do as well. I think that they have to get it out on that date. And I don't want to say I don't know what the fuck's going on at Capcom, but I feel like they're going to get it out.
The previews are out today. I haven't seen them, and they're good. There you go. I think they'll like it.
Yeah, going back to our last a couple topics about sequels, like this is a perfect example of like calling it Resident Evil 7 is interesting to me, because I feel like that's kind of a misstep. Like it should have just been Resident Evil Biohazard. Like just like it is a soft reboot, whatever, because it is different enough to differentiate from the 6 and all them. But first off, the logo looks dope as fuck, and I'm sure someone saw that they could do the VII and the evil, and they're like, oh yeah, we're fucking doing that. But also, I get that they need to differentiate from the Resident Evil Raccoon City stories.
Yeah, and the Revelations and all those kinds of games as well, which were supposed to be good, but I have it on Vita, but I haven't played it yet. It's funny because before Resident Evil was announced, I predicted it would be called Biohazard, and I just pulled that out of my ass. Like it's not like I heard that and I didn't expect it. I was just like, wouldn't that be cool? So we got at least halfway to what it was supposed to be, I think. But Colin was right. Yeah, it was just one of those things where I was like, I don't know. I just think it would be cool to pay homage to that. To the particular real name of the game. It's called Biohazard in Japan, and you see that happening with other franchises. Dragon Warrior became Dragon Quest finally, like it should have been, because of trademark problems. And Rockman is we call it Mega Man. So I was like, well, maybe they can figure that out and finally unify the series, because Resident Evil has cachet, but I'm not so sure it's good cachet anymore, and so I don't think it would have necessarily hurt them.
It's like Final Fantasy in a lot of ways, where it used to be the AAA game, and now it's like, is Resident Evil a AAA game?
Well, we're gonna find out.
That's definitely true.
Because 6 came out.
Is it true that Resident Evil 7 in Japan is called Biohazard Resident Evil?
Yep,
that's fucking awesome.
That is true.
I love people sometimes. All right, speaking of people I love, we got Gav Condola. The fact that Sun and Moon have sold so well, surely a correlation with the Go phenomenon, correct?
I would assume so.
Then there's a quote. After becoming the most pre-ordered video games in Nintendo history, Pokemon Sun and Moon, the latest games of the wildly popular Pokemon franchise, have now become the fastest selling games that Nintendo has ever launched in the Americas. In less than 2 weeks, Pokemon Sun and Moon for the 3DS family of systems sold a combined total of 3.7 million units. That's an 85% increase over Pokemon X and Y, the previous record holders for Nintendo's fastest selling games, during the same period when those games launched in 2013.
It's very impressive, and I saw that GameStop had noted that that was the best selling game of the year. Better selling for them on a retailer to retailer basis than even Call of Duty. Now that's unbelievable. And we'll know, who knows if those numbers will stay that way. But just the fact that that's in that conversation with Infinite Warfare and even with Battlefield 1 shows you Nintendo's strong legs. 3DS hardware still selling. I kind of feel bad because my nephew Finley was like, I want to get a 3DS. He's like 7 or 8 or whatever. And I was like, no, and I'm like, no, don't get the 3DS. Like, it's going to die soon. Get the Switch. Just save your money and buy a Switch. And now I'm wondering, I'm like, well, is that bad advice? Because...
Well, what you should have done is you should have got him the $99 Black Friday deal. Because that one looked fucking dope. And $99 for a 3DS with the library.
But there was a whole balloon, right? Where they could, it was supposed to go on sale on Black Friday, but they got to pre-order it. And so people who stayed up and tried to do the Black Friday thing, it didn't work out for. There was a whole bunch of people who were pissed off about it.
They're the fucking worst with this shit. And just as an aside with the NES Classic snafu that's been going on, really not hopeful about Switch's launch now not in terms of the quality of the hardware, but in terms of like ease of getting. I mean, they're just fucking ridiculous. If they can't get that right, we should all be very afraid.
Well, speaking positively about Nintendo, I am fucking stoked. They announced that there's the press events over there in New York the day after the Nintendo Switch presentation, and hopefully I will be going, which is fantastic. We're still working on the details.
Sure you will.
I'm pretty sure you're going, but I don't know if we're. I don't know.
Yeah, great. Anyway,
I don't have your plane ticket.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
We're sending you. Kevin's going in your bag.
It's gonna be great. I can't fucking wait. So there should be impressions and stuff coming from that.
Shout out to New York, by the way.
Yeah, shout out to New York.
Hear it for New York. You ever heard that song?
No, never heard it. 7 million times. You want to beat someone up. Had a lot of pride about that song for about 36 hours, and then they just ripped it right out of me.
Our boy Corey McMaster says, I want to hear more about Final Fantasy. I would love to hear your guys' favorite Final Fantasy soundtracks. Shout out to Corey, by the way, the guy that did the Kind of Funny Animated Series theme song and the latest Kind of Funny Animated Series episode's orchestral score, where he remade the Man of Steel music.
Yeah, he did a really good job.
Straight up baller. Love that motherfucker. But anyway, favorite Final Fantasy soundtrack. What do you think?
It's tough. 4 comes to mind first. 6 is right here behind us. That's Narsh. The town you start in. And I was told by someone that I'm saying that wrong, but it's Narshe, and it's Narsh. So I would say 4, and then maybe 7. I think would be my 2 answers. I think 6 has a strong soundtrack too, but 4 I think is super iconic. The Red Wings theme, the
theme of love.
Yeah, all that. I mean, you can't really go wrong from 4 on, even with 5. But I think that I would say 4 and 7 have the strongest soundtrack. 7 is iconic, obviously.
I'm actually surprised you said that because I know that sometimes 7's a little overblown in your eyes. But I do think that at the end of the day, 7 is the right answer because it is so from top to bottom, like every single song has a meaning and a place. I think that 6 has the strongest songs. I think that its character themes really kind of stand alone in a way that other games don't necessarily have as memorable themes for individual characters. Eris, obviously, in 7 does, but I think a lot of the other characters don't, whereas in 6, each one of their themes is very iconic. 10 soundtrack wasn't that great. It had a couple cool moments. 8 as well. A lot of the boss fight music was cool, and a lot of the fighting music was great, and the final bosses specifically. 9, I think, is an underrated soundtrack. And obviously all the Uematsu stuff is fantastic, but I do think that 7 is a step above the rest of them. I love Final Fantasy 15 soundtrack though.
Florence and the Machine.
Florence and the Machine. Yeah. Again though, it set the tone so well for that. But score talking about Shimamura destroyed it on this, and I loved her work in Kingdom Hearts, and I think that it's nice to be able to hear her music and style in a different instrumentation that's not just a whole bunch of freaking like weird ass clarinets and shit and like Disney sound and stuff in Kingdom Hearts. Like the Final Fantasy, the use of her piano and all that stuff is fucking great. So yeah. Owen Palmer, aka at word925. How do you decide what to play during times when there are several games out that you want to play /beat? Welcome to my life right now. Holy shit.
It's hard. There's
so much going on, and I have a copy of Last Guardian, but I don't know when the hell I'm playing that shit. I've been waiting for that game forever. I want to play that game now. But Final Fantasy 15's here, so I ain't playing that shit for a while.
I mean, we're spoiled, right? I mean, and that's the thing is like you got to play what you want to play at this point. And I think last night I was playing Last Guardian, and I knew I had to stop at some point to start Final Fantasy because I knew that'd be a topic today, and I can talk about that today. So I was actually doing things, order of operation all wrong. I should have put off Last Guardian, but I wanted to jump in and see. I had to see it with my own eyes what this game was all about because for me, that's a PlayStation story I've been following for so long and covering for so long. But then jumping into Final Fantasy is like, oh, and now it's kind of done this thing where it's like, okay, man, I had so much fun with Final Fantasy. I want to get home and finally beat that Watch Dogs mission and then get back to Final Fantasy. But then, get right back to Last Guardian because it's all part of the same conversation. And that sucks, but it's also the problem of, to his question, Watch Dogs is still in the conversation right now because it's so close to being finished. And Final Fantasy is so long that I'm not, there's no way for me to sit down, I don't feel like, and play through that and then move to something else. I feel like I'm gonna have to juggle that with other games for a while. And the great, for me is like Dead Rising 4. I was so stoked when they announced Dead Rising 4, and I'm still stoked for it, but it's like, that is now on the back burner until I'm through Final Fantasy, or at least done with Final Fantasy and through The Last Guardian, or at least done with The Last Guardian.
It goes back to the argument, not the argument, but the conversation I was making earlier in the year when I kind of just accepted that there were games I just wasn't going to play. That I used to kind of tell myself or lie to myself even that, like, well, I'll get to that eventually. And then it's just about the idea of just saying, well, I'm not playing Watch Dogs 2. It's not going to happen. So that even frees me up and eases my mind. But the Letter Quest remastered thing I said before, where I'm like, well, I have Final Fantasy 15 and The Last Guardian, but I kind of just want to play Letter Quest because I just really like it. I'm like, well, you just got to be true to what you want to play. I don't think, I've said it before, I don't think there's anything to prove in this regard. So I balance it out in the sense of like what draws me in and what has its hooks in me. And a PR friend of ours asked me on Twitter today, she asked, when I said about Final Fantasy 15 not having its hooks in me yet, she asked, well, how much time do you give a game before, like, to give your hooks in? Is it an hour? Is it half an hour? Is it 10 hours? And I'm like, 3 hours maybe at the most. And if it doesn't, then I'm out. because of this particular conundrum, this problem. Where you come into this quandary pretty often this time of year where it's like, well, I have to choose, and so that means I have to check certain boxes off and know that I'm not going to play those games as well. So that's the way I kind of handle it. So I just kind of go where my heart tells me to go, and sometimes it takes me away from games entirely, and to go watch a TV show or read a book. But in terms of games specifically, because I've been playing a shit ton of games lately, it just, you jump around to what feels best.
Yeah, it's funny how that happens. Like even last night, like Final Fantasy is all I wanted to play, but I had Super Mario Maker 3DS, and I was like, you know what? I want to pop this in for just a second, just because there is the Super Mario Challenge mode or whatever. I don't know what it's called, but it's the thing with the 100 Nintendo made courses. And I was like, I just want to see the level of quality. Start playing. I'm like, these are fucking fantastic. So I'm like, all right, cool. I'm gonna play that later. But yeah, Mario Maker, for those wondering, it's great. It's gimped as fuck compared to the Wii U version. Like the download system is totally borked, but it's cool to be able to play Nintendo-made Mario Maker levels, and all the tools that are there to make it. Making things isn't my favorite thing to do, so I'm not going to do that. But I can't wait to have this game as a platform that I can play on airplanes for the rest of my life.
Sure.
And hopefully, this is a sign that the Switch version will fix all of our issues with everything. Final question is kind of tied into that a little bit. Juan Casares says, with so many games always coming out, how are we not burnt out? How are game makers not burnt out?
Oh, I mean, I don't think game makers are burnt out because they're not making all of the games. A studio works on a game for 2.5, 3.5, 4, 5 years. So I think that they get burned out on one game, and then they're probably excited to play all these different games that we're kind of inundated with and maybe get tired of. I've said before, and I say it boldly, and it's going to happen again. I get tired of games sometimes, and I've gone months without playing games when I was at IGN, with the exception of games that I had to play for work and covering my beat and all that kind of stuff. I would go home and not play. I didn't turn on my PS3 for a long time, at times, because I'm like, I don't owe any. I owe it to the only thing I owe anything to is myself, to like be happy and content with what I'm doing. So sometimes you have to step away from games, just like this year I'm a huge football fan, but I've been watching fewer football games. I watch every Jets game, but I don't feel the need to sit there all day and then on Monday night and Thursday night watching every fucking game because I'm trying to prove something. I'm like, I just don't want to do this right now. It doesn't make me any less of a football fan. So I think that's kind of how I justify getting burned out or not getting burnt out. The answer is that I do get burned out.
Yeah, see, I've never gotten burned out, and I don't think that I can because of how I play games. Like, I have always just played the ones that I want to play or ones that people have recommended to me because they think I'm going to like them. Like, I've never been the guy that plays everything. So I think because of that, I don't get burned out because I usually am aware of the experience that I'm getting. And that's kind of like I can't imagine getting burned out on movies or burned out on TV. It's just games are just games. So it's like, unless you're looking at them as I need to play every single one the moment it comes out and like all this stuff, like that's when the stress comes into it and that's when the fun goes away. So it's like, I can imagine getting burned out in that way. I mean, an example of that to an extent on my end is Final Fantasy. It's just like, fuck, I want to beat it because I want to have fun with it, but also because I want to be able to speak about it on the show. So it's like the job aspect does
thing, right?
A level to it, but it's like, even having said that, like at the end of the day, I want to play Final Fantasy because I want to play Final Fantasy.
No, that's
like,
a big part. I mean, to the Watch Dogs point, right? Like at some point I had to stop doing side ops in Watch Dogs. I was like, no, I got to get through this because there's a million other games coming out. I want to be able to play them and talk about that as it comes. But those games are also ones I want to play. If Watch Dogs 2 was the last release and Final Fantasy and Last Guardian and Dead Rising weren't games I actually wanted to ever touch, then I'd have no problem still fucking around with it and be like, oh yeah, that's fine. Kind of how I am with Dishonored, right? I'll get to Dishonored when I get to Dishonored. I'm not in a hurry or anything. I want to try it because so many people think I'll like it. But yeah, I mean, I think being burned out is one thing, but not being interested in any games that are out right at that moment is another. Because that's for me, like video games are always going to be my preferred mode of entertainment. They're what I want to do. But there's plenty of times I look at my cross media bar or my library and I'm just like, no, none of this is what I want to do right now. So I'm going to go do something else and read comics or, go do this. Well, yeah. Portillo, I guess. He's been peeing in the corner.
There he goes. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Kind of Funny Gamescast. Thank you very much for watching this. Until next time, I love you.